bad. It's not that they do not know smoking is bad. It's just that the mind has not been cultured in such a way that it says, no, I'm not going to take this. So we need to internalize all these aspects of holistic development. We need to bring back education to what it is supposed to be, to develop the human being, rather than, see how he can get a certificate, how he can get a qualification, how he can get a job, how he can get straight A's. That has been the focus. I mean, I'm sure if you look back, into what has been happening over the years in Sri Lanka, for example, which is a very classic case. I don't say this is happening only in Sri Lanka, but Sri Lanka is a very classic case. Let me ask you, I turn back the question, what do you think is happening in terms of the education system in Sri Lanka?
Well, then again, as you said, I think mostly I think education is for employment. That's what the younger generation
think. So I'm
think.
not wrong, yes?
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong. And also, I remember as a child when I went to Sunday school, the most venerable Madihe Mahanayaka Thero used to say, he went and did an interview in the jail, and he found out that most prisoners have not gone not only to Sunday school, but also to school, or just maybe turned out of school rather young. But then Dr. Kumarasiri, I noticed that, well, within the educated society also, or what we call educated, now we come across doctors who commit crime or lawyers who commit crime. So as you said, I think not only in Sri Lanka, I think around the world, mostly the education system has failed, as you said.
Yeah. But in Sri Lanka, I noticed one additional feature. And that feature is this tuition.
Exactly.
You have schools and you have a parallel system going on, tuition. And that's because, society, parents, teachers, policy makers, condone it or whatever, I do not know. And it has already been existing for some time. I mean, if you say that you need a tuition system, as a parallel system of education, that means obviously what is happening in school is a flop. It's a failure.
Definitely.
It is already a self-admission, but it is going on. And it is, what you call it, booming business, tuition classes. And that is not education, where a child just memorizes, katapadang karla, they just memorize the whole thing and go to the examination halls and integrate. That is not education at all. So this is another feature that we find in Sri Lanka. And we need to ask ourselves now, are we going to continue like this? What is going to happen if we continue like this? Obviously, we are going to get the problems, of not being able to achieve development, not being able to achieve a harmonious society, and all the other, negative elements are going to be, more prominent. So we need to now work very closely with policymakers as well as practitioners to see how we can solve this problem. Or in my own little way, I am not an educationist by any chance. I happen to be interested in it. I happen to be asked to set up a training institute to train ambassadors for the Malaysian government, diplomats. And as a result of my involvement in setting up this institute, I came to know about training and education psychology, learning psychology. And here I was able to reflect and see, not only in Malaysia but many other countries like Sri Lanka as well, that we are so sad situation where you have a history of Buddhist education and Buddhist pedagogy, yet we are not using it. I know for centuries, there has been great educators because of the Buddhist heritage, and the Buddha himself, is an unparalleled teacher, unsurpassed teacher, peerless teacher. In fact, after we say our 5 precepts, we salute and we honor the Buddha by stating that, he is unparalleled teacher, Purusa Dhammasarati Satta Deva Manusana, not only just an audited teacher of gods and men, but do we know how he taught? Are we using the methods he taught?
Definitely not.
So this is a paradox. Here you have a heritage of Buddhist education, a rich Buddhist education, and you also have a pedagogy. I can't use any other words. Pedagogy actually means teaching methods and techniques. He used some fantastic methods. I mean, he taught every strata of society. He taught murderers, serial killers, Angulimala. He taught Kissa Gautami through simulation, through role play, through interactive learning, all kinds of modern jargon that you come across today. They use all kinds of jargon in modern education. The terms are there, but actually the Buddha had already used this. And he is also, as I mentioned earlier, I talked about cognitive, affective and psychomotor. And when I came across these terms, I thought, well, it's some big discovery. But fortunately, when I look back, I was able to trace that, the Buddha had talked about pariyati, patipatti and pativeda. He had already explained that, the base of all learning is just basic knowledge. That's the base. Pure knowledge, the theory. But you need to go beyond theory. You need to go into understanding. He even went one step further. You've got to understand what it is all about. That's why in the Eightfold Path you have right understanding. It goes right down through the Eightfold Paths. If you don't have understanding of the knowledge, then the knowledge doesn't make sense. It's just like any other knowledge. It's neutral. So he emphasized right understanding. And he also emphasized the importance of internalizing. You need to internalize. It's no point knowing something, but if you do not make it part of your life. So that's why he had pariyati, where you internalize. This internalization process is all the time there. Even when we say 5 precepts, for example, we say sikkhapadang samadhiyami. The term sikkhapada is skillful training in the practice of not killing, of not injuring. That skillful training is underlined in all of the 5 precepts. It is a training program. Buddhism is a complete training program for us to develop ourselves. So if we are able to now focus on Buddhist education and Buddhist pedagogy, then there is a chance to change the education system. More and more of this should go into the education system, so that there should be a curricula for the development of the human being and understanding, self-understanding of what we are as human beings. If we are able to understand our human condition and what it is to be human, then we have a chance to move in the right direction. Otherwise, we'll be just using education as a passport to a job or to getting a certificate and earning, something which is not what it is supposed to be. Then he went to Pativeda, which is not only knowing, but being what you know and then having the wisdom from it. Based on that, you might be asking, as to how we can bring about these things in actual life. Now, I'll ask you another question. When you went to school, you obviously must have learned your ABC. You speak so good English, so you must have gone to an English school somehow or other. How did you learn your ABC, for example? What did you?
Well,
how much was?
I didn't go to an English school. I went to Visakha Vidyalaya.
Oh, wonderful!
Thank you. And I think I learned it from home. My mother taught it.
A is for?
Apple. That's what we all say.
Yeah.
And B is for bat. C is for cat.
Yeah. Have you seen an apple tree?
Well, no.
Then why do you learn A for apple? You have not seen an apple tree, and you know, this has been going on for hundreds of years. In the early days when they taught A is for apple, the child didn't even see an apple. You know, he was taught A is for apple. And here is cognitive learning. You know, I'm illustrating cognitive learning as it has been done from small. So I thought, you know, this doesn't make sense. And I thought, you know, we will try and bring out Buddhist education and Buddhist pedagogy into this process. And I thought, you know, just talking about it at the conceptual level, you can talk and talk and talk, you know, but what do you do? Nothing happens. So I realized very early that we need to provide tools. We need to provide actual tools to bring about the conceptual aspects we discussed earlier on. And I produced this book, this My Alphabet book. This book, My Alphabet book, Buddhist Pedagogical Approach, was intentionally brought as a tool, as an illustration, to put into practice what I had taught in terms of the concepts of learning and teaching. And instead of learning A for apple, in this lesson, I teach A for altar. And I am not just teaching, I'm only just, you know, creating an atmosphere of learning.